Hi, I'm standing at the end of Dunstan Road and the beginning of Foxwell Drive, opposite Dunstan Park in Headington, and I'm about to do a video which one of the commenters has requested about Dunstan Road. I'll walk up along it and film the buildings and surroundings and so on. And I've tried to choose a nice day for this because I like the videos to look cheerful. Unfortunately, it's a little bit cloudy, so you won't get as much sun as I've been able to provide for the past few days. A bit about the surroundings first. That's Foxwell Drive. That's Dunstan Road. Dunstan Road continues round to the left. And this is Halliday Hill. Well, okay, let's turn round. And back to Dunstan Road. Dunstan Road is, according to the Headington History website, named after an advisor who helped one of Headington's most famous inhabitants, and indeed, apparently, one of the first Headington inhabitants whose name we know. And the advisor was Saint Dunstan, the Archbishop of Canterbury, or an Archbishop of Canterbury. And the person advised was King Ethelred. Now, when I was at school, Ethelred was called Ethelred the Unready. And there are two things to say about that. One is that it may well be a slur. I think my history books regarded him as particularly unready or unsuitable in some way, but attitudes change over time, and maybe he has been rehabilitated since. The other thing is that unready is a sort of mistranslation anyway. Ethelred's own name, Ethelred, the Ethel bit is related to Germanic edel, meaning noble or well-born, and the red bit is related to a Germanic word meaning advise or advised, and the combination edel plus red just meant noble or well-born plus advice, that is, well advised. You get the word red or rat in words like Ratshaus, meaning town hall. And the unread bit was apparently a feeble pun. The red again is the word for advice, so the whole unread word just means badly advised or prone to bad plans or something of the sort. It has nothing to do with not being ready in the sense of readiness. So that's his name. As far as whether he was an inhabitant of Headington or not, the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle says that he built a royal palace at Headington, and apparently there's a legend that says this was near Dunstan Road on the site of what is now Ethelred Court, and I'll show you that as I walk up the road. An archaeologist named Clifford Jones says that perhaps there was a palace opposite Emden House in Barton Lane, but apparently there were excavations in 2001 there and nothing conclusive was found. As far as the name of the road goes, Dunstan Road was named Dunstan Road in 1939. Between 1885 and 1939, it was Cemetery Road, named after a cemetery that was started here in 1885. And before that, it was Marston Lane. It was just Marston Lane, a footpath between Marston and here. So let's have a look at Dunstan Road. Most of what's up this end, on this side, is the boundary of Dunstan Park. There's a little group of houses here. Here the road curves round and becomes Saxon Way, presumably named after the Saxon presence in Oxford. That is Saxon Way. There used to be a pub further along it called the Cavalier, and I'm afraid to say that that has been demolished and turned into flats. That now is Dunstan Park on my left. And there's quite a feeling of openness round here. It's nice. And that's partly because of the park. Now there are some more horsetails. And this is very nice. It's been allowed to go wild. You can imagine being a kid here and running out when you heard the ice cream van and just sitting on the grass, chewing a Wall's cornetto or whatever they had, and then going off to play a few games in the park. I have walked and run through Dunstan Park quite a bit, and when the weather is wet, look out for boggy bits. Now this is apparently a split level road. And I've now gone round in a tiny loop and come out a little further up the hill than I was before. That's pretty nasty. So that is I'll walk down here just to connect up with where I went behind. That's the park again, and you can go right down that track and come out the other end. That's where I went behind. And yes, I thought so. That is the cemetery. So Dunstan Road was called Cemetery Road, named after this part between 1885 and 1939. That's the cemetery chapel. One of the nice things about this part of Oxford, I think, is that you can add more variation to your landscape designs because it's hilly. And you can make nice windy paths that go up and around, or that look over things. That would be the John Radcliffe. Well, I'm not going to do the whole of the cemetery this time because I may not have enough battery. If anyone wants to see it, let me know and I'll do it in a separate video, possibly combined with Dunstan Park. And that's the cemetery chapel. One of the nice things about this part of Headington is all these old stone walls. the Manor farmhouse. Well, this is the Manor farmhouse, and thanks. It's one of the historic buildings in Dunstan Road, probably built in the 17th century and much altered apparently in 1936-37. Two wings were added by Benfield and Loxley, who are builders that still survive and that you still see every day in Oxford. It's a listed building, and its garden is now Ethelred Court, and I'm going to read some reminiscences by a George Stewart. They were written in 2003 and are recorded on the Headington website. This is George Stewart. I stayed frequently at Manor Farmhouse with the owner, Molly McGarvey. In my recollection and that of the housekeeper, she did not sell it until the 1970s, since I was often there during that decade as well as the previous one. Molly had studied singing in Vienna, but decided to leave after the Nazis took over Austria. She had given successful recitals in that city, but the war put paid to any possible career. Sadly, her fiancé was killed in the war and she never married. When her parents died, Molly moved back to Manor Farmhouse from a London flat. Music had always formed an important part of the family life. Amongst many distinguished visitors was the great pianist Arthur Rubinstein, who devotes some space to them in his autobiography. Just before he died, Mr. McGarvey surmised, quite correctly, that the house was at its peak and that it would inevitably go downhill after his departure. Molly died in her London house about a year ago, 2002. She was in her 90s and is still greatly missed. Her wonderful housekeeper, Mrs. Emmy Gibson, is still alive and living in Headington. Her husband, George, used to be the full-time gardener at the house. While they were all around, the house and gardens were truly lovely. In its heyday, I still recall innumerable happy days, lazing under the many fine, mature trees that once stood where Ethelred Court has been built. Christmas at Manor Farmhouse was also special, with all the traditional trimmings, and many happy evenings spent around the grand piano, singing songs and excerpts from opera. Molly sold off a portion of land to the hospital in the late 1960s without doing any great visible damage to the house and its environs. However, the final purchaser clearly saw it only as a potential site for development, and the sad result is all too visible. I made the mistake of revisiting the house after the estate had been built and wept. Wisely, Molly decided that she would never return. So that is one of Dunstan Road's historic buildings. This is Ethelred Court. Well, this is apparently where the garden was. Innumerable days spent lazing under mature trees, it does not recall. Back on Dunstan Road. Okay, well that looks interesting too. I don't know anything about Southway. So this is one Dunstan Road. Old Headington Village Hall. Private property. So could it be that this is a hall that was built when Headington was still an independent village and was bought up after it stopped being one? And now I come to the end of Dunstan Road, and St Andrews Road is next. And I've done a short part of St Andrews Road already, without talking much about it. When I walked to the King's Arms, I turned off onto St Andrews Road from Osler Road and walked along to the pub. But there's one more building here to do, and that is Ruskin College, or one more site here to do, and that's Ruskin College. And you'll have noticed that about a week ago I did a video set in North Hinksey about Ruskin Cottage and the road that Ruskin had built to help the villagers, people who worked on it being such notables as Oscar Wilde when he was a student, and the historian Arnold Toynbee when he was a student. And I did that video then because I wanted not to have to explain John Ruskin at the same time as I was doing Dunstan Road. So I've hived off my explanation of John Ruskin into that video if you want to know more about him and Oxford. In any case, Ruskin had an ideal. Well, he had many ideals, but one was that the working classes should receive the same standard of education as the elite. And that is why Ruskin College was founded, but it actually has very little connection with him. It's named after Ruskin, but not founded by him. It was founded in 1899 by two Americans, Charles Beard and Walter Vroman, who, as like Ruskin, believed that everybody, and not just the elite, should get the same level of education. And it started as Ruskin Hall, a free university, offering evening and correspondence classes to working people. The old building here is one that I can't see much of from the outside, but it is or was known as the Rookery, and it was renamed Ruskin Hall from 1946 when Ruskin College bought it. At the time, I think Ruskin College's main building was in Walton Street. Ruskin College eventually closed that building and it was taken over by, I think, Exeter College. And at the same time, this site became Ruskin College. And that is Dunstan Road. Let me know, anybody, if you have more requests, and I'll see you next time.